Hi, this is Claudia Filos with the Center for Atlantic Studies, and I'm joined today by Keith Stone, and Gregory Nagy will be joining us very soon. And this is the next edition of HeroesX Office Hours. So thanks for joining us, Keith.
That's always a pleasure. I love it.
It is always a pleasure. So, so let's talk, okay? You know, this might be a good week to start off. You know, I think Greg is going to join us in 5 minutes, but you know, we can actually start, I think, talking about some of the challenges of the discussion questions as Greg proposed them. I think they're a little bit tricky, right? And we
could talk challenging this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
no, they required a lot of integration of like the reading of like large sections of text and just like scrolling.
Sure. So I think really anyone who has tried to engage with those questions should feel very proud about taking them on. You know, I feel like I think they're the kind of questions that you know, Greg proposes to his students at Harvard, and you are proposing to your students at Harvard, and these are really challenging questions.
Questions that kind of make you synthesize things in, I don't know, like a quiz kind of way. Like, you already have mastered this, let me just like have you rehearse it. And sometimes you have questions that invite people to extend their knowledge by taking in more in order to answer it.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about maybe, I mean, I think I would have had a hard time with these questions, to be honest. So let's say we have someone who's thinking about these questions but didn't feel confident to try to give an answer. I mean, how do you proceed with a question when you feel like you're stuck, whether it's a question that someone else has posed for you, or it's a question that has arisen for you as you're reading a text? I mean, how do you kind of get around a difficult question, or how do you just start to pick up a thread and run with it?
I reconcile myself to doing a lot of work, so I'll block out some time. I'll often go back to the primary sources. I mean, and these questions are specifically asking about the primary sources, so that's already easy, that step. But just if I don't quite see the answer to a question already, I'm going to have to like kind of go back through and evaluate things anew with this new lens that I'm being asked to apply. And also like the social aspects, just asking other people what they think, if they have any ideas, returning to the kind of, I don't know, this is the dead social aspect of scholarship, or of the academy, which is, you know, people who have published things. Like, it's not really asking someone, but it is kind of like, you know, getting someone else's point of view, is like looking up other articles.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes even just one little comment from another person, it's not that you're looking for another answer, but it just shows you a different perspective, right? Like suddenly someone, you know, a few minutes ago, as we were preparing for this meeting, we were talking about that we had both started to reread the beginning of Helen, which is another tragedy by Euripides, right? So, and I happened to run across something and someone said it was just one little comment, and it really suddenly opened up a whole new perspective and way of reading. So yeah, I agree with that. Just talking things out with someone else.
I encourage everyone, like, read the footnotes, read everything, and you'll find these little comments sometimes that just really illuminate things.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I do when turning to a primary text is, you know, I mean, if I'm really having a hard time with the text, oftentimes I'm reading something electronically, but in that case, I might print it out and I really start marking up the text with a pencil as I read, and looking for any kind of repetitions or any kind of patterns that I can see. Because, you know, especially in ancient Greek literature, I think, you know, and this is something that Greg has expressed, I think at the beginning of the Best of the Achaeans, diction is the most accurate expression of theme. And so when we pay close attention to those words, it's really going to help us see what's going on with the themes, and that's really going to help us, right? So even if you you know, if you're seeing a lot of words about signs or pictures or symbols, if you're seeing a lot of words about fear, or, I mean, it doesn't have to be the same word repeated over and over again. Like, sometimes we're tracking very individual keywords in the HeroesX topic, but sometimes just a broad category.
Yeah, if you see that something else is appearing alongside the thing that you're trying to pay attention to, that's a great clue that, you know, to what the author is thinking or the culture is.
Right. And how about in a tragedy? I mean, the chorus too, I think, are these very highlighted moments, right? So if you're struggling, the chorus oftentimes can be challenging in themselves, reading, you know, these sections of the tragedies.
But the answer, in a way. I mean, often phrased in a kind of mystical way or an elusive way. Like they're often bringing in other stories, I think, the chorus. But yeah, I think they do kind of give you the answer.
And I think another trick then, if you're struggling, is look at the beginning and the end very carefully, right? The opening and the closing. Those are all opportunities, I think, to just find something to grasp onto, just to get you going.
Yeah, it was often like a little summary at the end or at the beginning, like the tragedies of Euripides that we'll be reading for next week. Or I guess they're being posted. We're posting them tomorrow. Is that right?
On Wednesday, yeah. So late on Tuesday night. I think it's midnight.
Yeah, they each start with a long speech by Aphrodite in the case of the Hippolytus. And the Bacchae too, right? It's like I can't picture the beginning of it right now. But
that's okay.
Also start with a long speech by Dionysus.
Yeah, I don't remember actually off the top of my head.
Well, I think so. I'm saying
that. We could look it up. But so okay, so I think that gives people sort of a way to start. As we wait for Greg to join us, maybe we could turn to a couple of the other questions in the discussion board. What do you think about that? Would that be helpful? Okay, so let's talk about. Well, first of all, I just wanted to respond to some of the developments in some posts that I think maybe talked about last time. One is the post that with the pictures that were inspired by Greg's trips to Athens.
Yeah, that's much longer now.
Right, it's gotten longer, and actually, there's a wonderful picture at the very bottom. I think it's on this thread. Do you see this? The rooftop.
Oh,
Isn't that great?
Great.
And so Ken P is pointing out the connection with the watchman on top of the roof at the Venia of the Agamemnon, which I thought was great.
Love that.
And then let's talk about Crimson Cloths, which has continued to develop in beautiful ways. In particular, I want to thank Chris Faka. I hope I'm doing some kind of justice to that. In the beautiful picture that you posted of cloths that you've woven, which is just dazzling to me. And we had a chance to look at that ahead of time together. So I hope people will continue to post about that. One of the things I really like that was mentioned there is that this person says that they still remember their thoughts and especially the feelings that accompanied them as they wove.
Right, and we talked about that, I think, a lot with Homeric epic, the emotions that are contained in the fabric of the work.
Right.
Metaphor that's used for epic, but yeah, it's all about connecting emotionally to verbal art in the case of the epics.
Yeah, for me, I mean, one of the things that came to my mind as soon as I read that, there's this very weird thing that happens when I read my old journals. I don't know if you ever kept journals, but when I go back and read an old journal, suddenly I can remember sitting there writing that page. And so it's not just that I remember what I wrote. So I don't think it's that, but somehow there's something, I wonder if it's something to do with working with your hands or.
Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah,
like with writing or like taking notes on a piece of paper, like you said, you print out the text sometimes to work more closely. There was something about that is more close.
Yeah, somehow I don't think that happens to take notes on a computer.
It's very different. I mean, it's generational perhaps, but I've never learned to do it well.
Huh?
You can take notes much faster with a pen.
Yeah. All right. So those are some of the threads that had sort of continued to develop over the last week that we had already sort of touched upon previously. I'm wondering if we could talk quickly about Oedipus at Colonus, a tragedy. And I know we wanted to ask Greg to talk about this. So I think it's interesting. So Quest Suzanne is asking, It is obvious that Oedipus Tyrannus is a tragedy, but Oedipus and Colonus doesn't quite fit my understanding of a tragedy. Can someone provide insights for me? I mean, that just to me was a very interesting question.
Yeah, how is it obvious? I mean, we're being told that it's a tragedy by Greg.
Right.
But
Right.
let's see. Yeah, my understanding of tragedy. I think that points to, I guess, an important difference of, like, when we talk about the modern definition of a hero, the modern meaning of the word hero, and the ancient one a lot, and I think we have a similar thing happening here because we still use the word tragedy, you know, as an English word, and it means like a really sad story or like a really messed up story. Like there's still this idea of fate, or like, oh, it's not just sad, but it's tragic because it was kind of unavoidable in some way that it's really messed up.
Right.
But we're not in touch with the ancient Greek meaning exactly, so we have to learn. So we're reading stories about heroes, and we're finding out what a hero is. Like, even though we don't think Oedipus is very heroic because he's doing all these messed up things, we still have to adjust our understanding of a hero based on this new evidence.
Right. So I think what you're saying is we can sort of rebuild our understanding of a tragedy based on the text that we're reading, right? So instead of sort of imposing our sense of what a tragedy should be, we can sort of rebuild it from. Yeah. Although ancient authors did talk about sort of the aspects of a tragedy and the parts of a tragedy. And actually, I think it's one of the things that's very interesting. Like if you Google the parts of a tragedy, you'll see that they have a very specific structure, right? Like a few moments ago, you talked about a certain kind of opening that a tragedy may have. They have a certain kind of form. They have those choral, the times when the chorus will perform.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different talk about, yeah.
Right, because what was it? Aeschylus is supposed to have added one of the actors, and then Sophocles added some more actors, so that the genre does change over time. I see Professor Nagy has joined us. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Greg has joined us. Thank you so much, Greg.
Sorry that the snow was keeping me back, but I'm here now.
No, we're so glad. Yeah, I know the tea in Boston is not so great in the snow.
No, it isn't. No.
But you look nice and cozy there, so we're glad to have you join us.
I'm warming up, yes.
Thinking about ancient Greek tragedy, actually, because of course that's the kind of genre that our participants, many of them, are thinking about and reading today. And so we were just talking about a question that Quest Suzanne had posted, and she was saying that it's obvious that to her that Oedipus Tyrannus is a tragedy, but Oedipus at Colonus doesn't seem to fit her understanding of tragedy. And so she was wondering if anyone had insights to that. So what's your response to that kind of?
Well, the thing is that whenever we think we know what tragedy is, we read the next one and our expectations are blunted. Tragedy can be so many different things. It is called the technique, in other words, the ultimate craft, by Aristophanes, or should I say Aristophanes channeling Aeschylus and Euripides in the Frogs. So when Aeschylus and Euripides are debating with each other about who is the greatest of all dramatists, they keep talking to each other, or should I say Aristophanes channels them as talking to each other in terms of the techne, in terms of the art. Mm-hmm. And if a form of verbal art is that important, you can do anything you want with it. Or somebody like Sophocles can, especially if he's 90 years old or thereabouts.
Okay, so you're talking about it's an evolving medium, right? Like we may think of it as this very, I mean, there are structures, but even those are evolving and changing during the course of this period, where this is sort of the golden period, and it's really quite, it's not that long, right?
Well, a tragedy is almost never. Well, in fact, I can't think of any that's more than 2,000 lines long. Right. So it's 2,000 lines. That's like, at best, maybe a third or a fourth of the Iliad or Odyssey.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. I was actually thinking about the time period in which the genre was really in its heyday and evolving.
And I know that's where I joined your conversation because Keith was just saying, just as I tuned in, that there are things like changing from 2 actors to 3 actors, and there are other structural changes. And maybe I was a little too glib in saying you can do anything you want with tragedy if you're a Sophocles, but I am saying that yes, there are rules, but when you have something like Oedipus at Colonus, which is his swan song, there are a lot of other things that go into it.
Okay. Yeah.
When the medium becomes all important, I think it's fair to say that it then becomes responsible for doing everything else that's important in the culture.
Oh, I like that. Yes, and that tends to be the case with forms of verbal art that become more prestigious than others, is that they become so important because of their prestige that that the potential for what you can do with it, I think, expands. There, that was a more cautious way of saying it than the way I said it when I just parachuted into your conversation.
Oh, so interesting. Okay. So, all right. Can we turn to the hourly discussion questions, Greg?
Oh, yeah.
That you had shared. So, which I think Keith and I had a discussion about this, are quite challenging, actually, but in a beautiful way. And so I think, so we spent some time talking about what to do if you come up across a question that someone has posed to you, or that you've raised for yourself. But can you talk us through the questions a little bit, and we can prompt you those questions, because I know it's been a while since you've written them.
Yeah.
We're wondering, let's share those. 1 second. Okay, so the hour 18 discussion question.
Yeah.
Is this: in the course of our readings, we have seen time and again that Greek religion, in the sense of ancestral customs involving the interaction of myth and ritual, is a distinctly localized phenomenon. So in the case of the myths and rituals involving the hero cult of Oedipus at the locale of Colonus, which is a deme or district belonging to the overall state of Athens, we can expect the meaning of Oedipus as cult hero to be understood most fully in the context of that one deme, Colonus, not in the context of Athens as the overall state to which Colonus belongs. How does the drama of Oedipus at Colonus by Sophocles, who is a native son of Colonus, enhance the understanding of Oedipus, not only for the people of Colonus, but also for the people of all Athens as an overall state?
You know, I realize now that this is probably one of the hardest questions I asked, but I didn't mean for it to be a hard question.
Yeah, tell us, what did you have in mind?
Okay, so here's the thing. There are two, excuse me, there are 2 cults of Oedipus in the general area of Greater Athens. One of them is right downtown, and in fact, Keith has a picture of me standing in front of this particular spot, and it's the Cave of the Furies, or Erinus, at the ground level of the Areopagus, the so-called peak of Ares. If you visit Athens, when you climb down from the Acropolis to ground level, you see the ground level next to the Areopagus, and there's the cave of the Erinus, the Furies, and that's where Oedipus was primarily worshipped. Now, when you have a cult hero worshipped in the city center like that, the local color can become somewhat bleached, and there can be more of an emphasis on those aspects of the cult hero that are more readily identifiable. So it's not quite as colorful a scene, if I can continue that metaphor, as at Colonus. Colonus is a district of Greater Athens. In today's terminology, it's a suburb. It's quite a ways away from the city center. And there, too, you have a cult of Oedipus, but there you see it in its full color version because it's so local. And I guess I can go back to the way I was addressing the previous question in the previous discussion, where I was saying that a 90-year-old Sophocles can do anything he wants. Again, instead of concentrating on an Oedipus myth that is centralized in the city center at the Areopagus, he concentrates on a variation which is not as well known, which is in his hometown, Colonus, which is quite a ways distant from the city center, and which has its own independent traditions. And he gives it a lot of local color. My God, the details about the chasm and the descending way and all those other features of the local sacred topography, that's as detailed as you can possibly get in tragedy, which tends not to accentuate local color. And so I guess that was very much on my mind in asking that question, is why is the Oedipus at Colonus even more direct than other tragedies about hero cult? And I would say it has to do with, I think, the mindset of Sophocles at a late stage of his life, where he might well be thinking that he is producing his swan song, his last masterpiece, something like that.
Beautiful.
And this is a tragedy that was, I mean, even though it's focusing on the local kind of myth of Colonus, it's being performed in the center of Athens, kind of around the hill from the Areopagus.
Yes. Yes.
Under Dionysus.
Yes, exactly. And I'm so glad you added that important detail, Keith, which is that even though the point of reference is that more faraway cult, the actual staging is right in the center of Athens.
Mm-hmm. And that'll be true of the two tragedies for next week also, by Euripides. The Hippolytus takes place in Troezen, around the bay, around the Gulf.
Yes.
And the Bacchae takes place in Thebes, actually.
And
was it under the direct control? It wasn't like Colonus, as like it wasn't.
In the case of Troezen, yeah, it's definitely not Athenian territory. No. And as Claudia and I can point out to the people out there, our friend Keith took the trouble to visit the place where Euripides imagined the setting for the Hippolytus. And
it was an exciting trip.
And we got to get you to talk about your impressions of that.
I will.
Very interesting site.
Yes. Okay. So maybe what we could do is we can have you talk a bit about that, what it's like to be there, Keith, next time. I don't know if you even have any great pictures. That would be awesome too.
Yeah, I'll look at pictures and see what I can.
Not put too much pressure. Great. So I see we just have 3 minutes left, Greg. Can we take a couple of minutes just to talk about the hour 19 discussion question?
Yes. Yes. Can you
yes.
just quickly run through it? You don't have to read the whole thing. I'll put it together in my mind.
Okay. So here's the main thing. Which is that you say, the crux is at the very end, how does the drama of Oedipus at Colonus by Sophocles, who is a native son of Colonus, enhance the understanding of Oedipus, not only for the Colonus, but also for the people of Athens as an overall state?
Yes, yes. This was a wonderful opportunity for me to kill two birds with one stone. And you know what? Since we have 2 minutes left, I can kill two birds with one stone even in addressing this. It's pretty much an extension of what I already said. And in fact, what I was trying to encourage our readers is to try to think about Oedipus in terms of both of these dramas, because it's very clear that that the other Oedipus, which is in terms of the story earlier than the story of Oedipus at Colonus, but in terms of composition, is also earlier. In a way, you can't, I think, possibly understand the essence of Oedipus as a cult hero if you experience only the Oedipus Tyrannus. You just can't. Mm-hmm. And I love the way the two complement each other. And Keith and you and I have talked many times about the strange strategy of starting with Oedipus at Colonus and working our way back to Oedipus Tyrannus, but I don't know, it makes so much sense to me in terms of the historical reality of hero cults, and in terms of how somebody as brilliant as Sophocles in the verbal art of making tragedies can put religion and art together so seamlessly, it seems.
Mm-hmm. And at the beginning, he kind of talks like a cult hero.
Yes.
The beginning of Oedipus Tyrannus. It's almost as if they were meant to be read in that order, although they're chronologically reversed.
Yeah. Or put it this way, Keith, you can see the mistake of Oedipus more clearly if you already have the Oedipus at Colonus in your head. And I think that's the experience our readers have. So apologies for maybe trying to drive a point home too insistently, but I think the takeaway here is that this is one of those times where you can really understand the idea of a hero 10 times better when you read these two tragedies in the order in which we read them.
Mm. Well, here's a really fun fact about our community right now, which is I think there's something about these tragedies that is very engaging, and we've seen it before, and we're seeing it this time. We had 140 people join this week, when we generally have about 100 people join, and also engagement bumped up this week, when generally, you know, as we go through a project like this, an online project, engagement tends to go down, but this week it was up. So I think people are really thinking about the questions. I don't think difficult questions are a discouragement. I think they actually encourage meaningful engagement. So yeah.
And let me leave people with this thought that it's no accident that when Aristophanes, that genius in another form of drama, channels Aeschylus and Euripides talking about their craft, that they refer to the craft of tragedy as the one and only craft. It's as if there was nothing else. It's an all-encompassing, all-embracing medium, and maybe that also has something to do with the appeal. It has a very broad humanistic appeal, and it just speaks to us. I think it speaks to us intellectually, emotionally, every which way.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, well, we're going to leave it at that. More talk about the craft next week. Keith, we look forward to talking to you about Hippolytus. Greg, we're looking forward to talking to you, as always, about both texts. And so we'll meet you back here in 1 week. Thanks so much.
And hearty wait for Keith to tell about his adventures at the spot where Hippolytus was driving his chariot at breakneck speed on a beach.
All kinds of excitement.
There we go.
Have to wait.
Okay. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.